One, go. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel and Happy New Year. If anyone is celebrating or visiting from China, you'll have to wait a few weeks. But for everyone else, I think it's a new year. We're all starting off fresh. All of what's happened in 2024, that's behind us. We don't worry about that. But actually, in this show, we are going to not worry about it, but we're going to take a little time ourselves. Normally, we have people come on and they talk about what they want to talk about, but all the people you see in front of you, mostly maybe one or two more, we put the show on. So we thought that we'd each take a few minutes, some probably longer than others, and tell us what happened in 2024 and maybe what we're anticipating in 2025. Before we get to that, next week, Cheryl Wilcox is going to be presenting. And before I go to our calendar, Cheryl, you want to kind of give us a brief presentation on what you're going to talk about next week?
Sure. Recently, I became, about 3 years ago, an Astro nightscape photographer, dealing mostly with the Milky Way and how do you marry that with a landscape. So my talk's going to be about photographing the Milky Way, taking that single image and taking it further to be a work of art that you'll be happy to put on your wall. So I hope to see you next week.
I do mostly DSOs and some solar, but I've always wanted to do that. But unfortunately, I don't live in a part of the world where you can, because our Milky Way consists of 4 stars, the moon, and a couple of planets, and that's about it. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to share my screen, if I know how to do this. Let's see, and see what else is coming up. Share an entire window. And here's our calendar. He says, here's our calendar. Here's our calendar. So Cheryl's going to be with us next week. After that, Alan Friedman on solar imaging. If you don't know Alan Friedman, you got to show up for this show. Alan is not the grandfather, but one of the original solar imagers that really made this more than just a hobby. He has produced some really wonderful things. After that, Justin Brimberry is going to talk more about NINA, which is getting better every month. I've been doing a little work on NINA, and it really is an incredible program and come a long way in a couple of years. After that, Jonathan Hill is going to talk about advanced solar eclipse photography. If you haven't seen Jonathan's eclipse, we can just put all of our eclipse photos and just throw them in the trash, because his is just incredible, and he's going to talk about how he's done that. And of course, we have Super Bowl for all of you in the United States, so we don't have a show on February 9th. Rolf Ollison is going to be here on the Centaurus A Extreme Deep Field. And after that, we have some open shows. So again, we always say, anyone out there that has an idea for a show, go to our the astroimagingchannel.org page, and we have a contact form. Just send us a message and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this, and someone will get back to you and we can put you on the schedule. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. All right, who's first up? Molly. Molly's first up. She's going to tell us what she's done in 2024. Molly.
Right. Excellent. All right, let me share my screen here. All righty. So astrophotography-wise, I had a quite good 2024. I'm going to go through some of the highlights and some new things, some growth along the way, and to kind of reflect on. It was a good opportunity to build this to kind of reflect on 2024, and I have some stats at the end as well. First of all, this was kind of a banner year for astronomy, because we had a lot of really amazing events happen this year, not least of which being, of course, the total solar eclipse back in April. So this first couple of slides, I'm going to share some exciting images from 2024. Some new techniques I used with this one, and some helpful stuff was I only had like 4 images that different exposures that weren't too messed up by the clouds. So I stretched those to different levels, something I hadn't done at a prior eclipse. And I learned how to use the Larson-Sekanina process to get more detail out of it, because I wasn't able to use the Photoshop process I used to use on this particular data set. So I got a really nice solar eclipse image, although it sounds like it's not going to be as nice as, I already forgot who was going to talk about that, my bad. Yeah, and got a really cool shot of Bailey's beads. And this one was made possible by the Nina Advanced Sequencer. Actually, I did this one in Nina, and the Nina Lucky Imaging plugin. I took a video using the Lucky Imaging plugin, which is what made this shot happen with such a fast sequence. And of course, I'm a PixInsight person. I know some Photoshop, but not nearly as much as other people. Layers kind of freak me out. So I had to use, in order to get these to sit on top of each other, but not have weird things blocked out, using a little bit of basic Photoshop layering. Eric would laugh at me. Super basic. I did a fair amount of solar imaging this year, not as much as I could have with how many clear days I have, but I only have so much capacity to process those images. This one took a while to process because it is several frames, about an hour's worth. But I happened to catch that X1.1 solar flare on a total fluke that I believe is the one that gave us the May incredible aurora. So that was pretty exciting to happen to catch on video here. Now this is taken with a Coronado PST. A lot of people say you can't use, you can't do astrophotography, you can't do solar imaging with a Coronado, but you can if you use one of the tubular shaped cameras. So like the ZWO 290 Mini or 120 Mini or something like that, one of the tubular ones. It totally works. And this is one of the results of that. And of course, another Photoshop tool used in the Photoshop timeline to align all the images. I did that with layers, but putting those into a sequence that I could then export into various formats. And of course, those all those couple solar flares that we had pointing not exactly our direction, but close enough, gave us some incredible northern lights display. Now, I live in New Mexico. I'm at 35 north latitude, and having aurora, being able to see aurora from this far south is exceedingly rare. But not only did we get aurora down here back in May, we actually had overhead aurora briefly. And this is one of the shots I got with my DSLR, was this over pretty much, actually, this one was actually a little bit south. It was so overhead. The blue streak in there is actually, it's not a meteor or plane, it's a Starlink train that happened to be crossing through this image as I took that. So that was kind of a cool shot there. And the clouds, even though we had some clouds, I think it made for an interesting shot with having the clouds in the foreground, the aurora in the background. It added some interesting contrast and features to the images. This is one of my other favorite images I took that night. With the clouds and the moon and the aurora, they almost kind of look like some kind of evil wizard storm. So I wish I'd like put on like some kind of robe and taken some like evil wizard picture, but this one I'll have to do, just me being excited about the aurora from my backyard. And then of course we got aurora again over the US in October. So a exceedingly rare event happened again in the same year, thanks to all of the solar activity we had this year. This one wasn't overhead, but we got some green that we didn't get the last time. This is looking out over a field, looking north, not a couple blocks away from my house. And I only knew this was happening because I happened to be looking at my all sky camera and saw pink on it and immediately ran outside to go see what was going on with that. So got some excellent aurora shots from this one as well. Some really cool structure and seeing some green aurora. I did capture that auroral arc, but I haven't had time to, it's a mosaic image and I always have trouble getting those to line up properly in any software I use. So I'll make an image out of that at some point, but I did catch that auroral arc. That was pretty cool. Besides sun activity, aurora, and a solar eclipse, we also had a really good comet this year, a naked eye comet, the first, I think, since 2020 when we had NEOWISE. And I took some pictures, some cell phone shots, some DSLR shots, and then finally it got far enough away from a tree I have in my backyard to be able to get with one of my telescopes. I was able to get a little more detail on that. And this one's made possible by Star Exterminator, Blur Exterminator, and Comet Align. And Star Exterminator in particular, because unlike StarNet, you can, well, I think you kind of can with StarNet, but I think Star Exterminator does a better job. You can remove the stars while the image is still in a linear state. So I could subtract the stars from each individual comet image and then stack the comet image. And then I don't have to worry about trying to fight star artifacts left over in the image. And it was a lot easier to work with. So a little more legwork at the beginning, but got a much nicer result at the end. And this one beats out by far all my previous comet images where I was trying to fight these streaks in the background that were left over and all the other battles you have to fight to get a comet image out of PixInsight. So I also want to share some of my favorite deep sky images from the year. This one's probably my all-time favorite for the year. You can see it's in my background here too. This is the Sol Nebula. And this one is, I think about, it's the one of the few Hubble palette images I've gotten colors that I really, really like. I've gotten it in one or two others, and I've published some other on Astrobin, published some other Hubble palette images that have decent color, but this one's probably one of the best colored ones that I've done this year and in the last couple of years. And Blur Exterminator also just worked really nicely on this one. I got some incredible detail. And the thing that I use to get the colors how I want is a script called Color Mask. And there's a new version of it that actually shows you the color wheel, which is a lot easier to work with. And we have a video from Steve Miller on the show a couple of years ago, who walks through how to use Color Mask to process Hubble palette images and get the colors that you want. And that's completely, I hadn't been able to successfully process a Hubble palette image until I used that. So finally got colors that I liked and looked good and got this nice 33-hour image taken over the span of almost 2 years, but I processed it in 2024. This one was also really exciting. This is a 3-panel mosaic on the Gamma Cygni region, taken with the Rokinon 135mm f2 with a dual narrowband filter. And I have not been able to process successfully a mosaic before using, I think it's John Murphy's photometric mosaic and the associated tools. He's got a great run through on the documentation on how to use it, a website that explains that. And I got this really beautiful 3-panel mosaic that I had to do pretty minimal cleaning up on in terms of seams and things like that. And so now I have a little more confidence to go build mosaics in the future, because I've been kind of afraid of them because my attempts to stitch them together in the past have not gone well. But with photometric mosaic, finally went great. So got to learn to use that tool this year, and looking forward to using it some more on some older data sets I have and want to reprocess. And then, of course, the exterminator tools to get some of that nice sharpness and deal with star artifacts and things like that. This one was taken in 2022, but again, I didn't have the courage to process it until this year, so I'm calling it a 2024 image. So those are some of my favorite images. I also got a couple of items of new gear this year as what was supposed to be a graduation present for myself, but is now kind of a deferred graduation present, is an Ioptron HAE29, which is one of Ioptron's strain wave mounts. So it's my first time having a strain wave mount. It's been going really well, actually, so we'll see if that continues into the future. But it's super portable, and that's been really fun to use. I bought a Skywatcher 12-inch f5 used off of a guy in Texas, and it's quite a nice scope. It's got at least to my relatively untrained visual eye, good optics. Certainly not as good as fancier scopes, but for a relatively affordable job, that is quite portable. Really nice views through that. I haven't set it up in the backyard enough as much as I should, but I did take it to a couple of star parties, so that's been nice. And then one of my friend Dan and I, we own some property together out in Arizona, some dark sky property, and we bought a 16-inch f4.5 Discovery Dob. This is a one-off that the president of the company had commissioned for a friend of his. And we're pretty sure Terry O made the mirror. It's a one-of-one mirror. They don't make this scope, so it's really quite a unique find that we bought used from a couple in Sedona. And that scope is incredible. It's beautiful. We had a guy with a 20-inch obsession tell us that the view is beautiful. So it has to be good if he agrees with that. We've got it out at the property, and yeah, absolutely gorgeous views and a really cool telescope. So some of my top acquisitions of the year, gear-wise. I got to go to 3 star parties, went to Rocky Mountain Star Stare. We brought, we named the scope Big Gun because the 16-inch, after the 16-inch naval World War II warship guns. I brought that to Rocky Mountain Star Stare in June. Went to this is like an astronomy club's star party, the Amarillo Astronomy Club. The guy that I bought the scope from invited me to it out in it's eastern New Mexico. And then I got to go to Nightfall and give the workshop for that, which is a huge honor because Adam Block, for instance, is giving next year. So getting to be on that level was very, very honored to be asked to do that. So had a successful star party out there as well. The dark sky property in Arizona I was talking about, we've named it Semper Tenebris, which is always dark, roughly in Latin. And we have been making improvements to the shed cabin we built out there. And I got to make 3 trips out there. And we finally finished the interior in September. And now it's nice and warm and cozy with insulation. It doesn't get as hot during the day. And we have so much pegboard in there to hang all of our things. It's great. So made 3 trips out there this year, which was exciting. It's only about a 6-hour drive for me. A couple of statistics. I keep an observing log. I've been keeping a log since my first night out, which I'm so glad I have done that. This year I had 95 observing nights, which is not as many as I thought, but I also had just moved out to Albuquerque this year. So I was getting my equipment set up at the beginning of the year. And we also had monsoon season, June, July, and August. But I had 95 observing nights, 15 of which were Bortle 4 or less. It's a little tricky to count my data sets because some that are in progress and some that are completed, and I had to go update. I have a spreadsheet that keeps track of all the completed ones. It was missing quite a few entries, but something around on the order of 35 processed images this year, which include images from prior years that I finally got around to processing this year. 30 in progress data sets. So I've got a lot of data hanging on data sets I haven't finished yet. Ran out of time before the end of the season. Changed telescopes, yada yada. I could not get a number just for this year for AAVSO observations, but my total lifetime is 4,620. And so I'm going to keep track of what that number is each year so I can see how many I made in a given year. And I have 71 nights of variable star data yet to process. And each of those nights includes as many as a dozen stars. So if you have any grad students who need some work, I got some work. And that dates all the way back to March 2021. I authored 9 Astronomy magazine columns this year and was elected to the AAVSO board of directors, which is exciting. And I'm learning a lot. And it's going to be a huge learning experience to be. I've been on leadership for much smaller organizations, but none the size of this. So it's going to be cool. And last but not least, I finally have all 4 rigs set back up in the backyard now. For a lot of the year, I only had 1, and then 2, and then 3, and ran 3 for a lot of this year, and then finally got the 4th one set back up, which is the over in the right side here, a 6-inch RC from GSO on my Ioptron 740 with a ZW0294 on the back. And eventually I'll be upgrading that with an electronic focuser and a filter wheel. But for now, it's pretty rock solid on focus. So I'm just going to run with the wideband filter for now. But I've got plans on a 5th rig with gear that I already have. I just need to test out some things. And I've already got a computer for it. And yeah, so be on the lookout for me not being able to process enough images next year with all the data that I'm pulling down. And finally, on tap for 2025, I have registered for the Texas Star Party, and I got an RV spot. So yes, they're doing it totally differently this year, by the way. So if you haven't gotten registered yet, do so ASAP because it's first come, first serve on the RV spots. They're not doing the lottery anymore. So I'm going to the Texas Star Party. I'm going on a camping trip to probably Bryce Canyon in June with my family. Probably 2 trips out to Semper Tenebris. already mentioned the FIST telescope rig, and I am currently I should be on track to graduate in March this year with my PhD in nuclear engineering. So we're very close now, very close. My dissertation is with my committee for final review, so we're almost there. And yep, that's all I got.
Thanks, Molly. You can stop sharing. That's great. I didn't know you had taken so many images. You know, it's amazing when you start counting up the hours that you put in on this. I have a couple of comments to make when it's my turn. But next we have Gowri, going to give us a presentation on what she's done.
Thank you, Eric. And that was awesome, Molly. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I will
Oh, you want
present.
to turn off your camera?
Yes, let me turn off my camera.
That bandwidth conservation.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah,
You're all
so the first thing I'd like to talk about is I do volunteer with the Astro Imaging channel, and my responsibility is to keep the program database spreadsheet up to date. And you can get to it by going into the website for the Astro Imaging channel and look for the program database up here. And if you click that, then if you click the link, you will see the database come up. And it is really an Excel spreadsheet, and you can treat it and query it as such. So every time we have a presentation, I go in and modify the spreadsheet with the latest presentation first. For instance, you see that the last presentation we had was on 15th of December, and the name of the presenter, the title of the presentation, and the description of the presentation, and also the category under which the presentation happens, which is image processing or acquisition or equipment or whatever the topic might be. So this is a way, and the Astro Imaging channel has been active for over 10 years, and every single presentation that has been done every week that there has been something is logged here. And you can take this, download the spreadsheet, and essentially take it to Excel and manipulate and query it to see, search, and look up anything in the past that's of interest. So I just wanted to mention this, and they're out there, but just wanted to highlight it. So
Gowri, before you switch off of that, I just want to add, we have 10 years worth of program. There's tons of information, but if you just search by title, which we used to do years ago, you really can't find anything. But the fact that Gowri and other people have a good description, which is searchable, allow you to find that obscure program on Hubble palette imaging that was done 4 years ago, without tearing your hair out, whatever hair you have left. So that's all.
Excellent point. Thank you, Eric. All right. Let me move on to my presentation, unless anyone has any questions on the program database. Anything so far? All right.
Is someone watching YouTube? Are there any questions?
There was a question.
I'm watching it, yeah.
Yeah, there was a question about how Molly ties down her scope, so we'll get to it.
I'm entering it now via text.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can I go on to my presentation?
Yes, go on.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So here's just an overview of my Astrophotography 2024 journey. And here are some of my images, which I created a collage out of. Thank you, Eric, for your help with that. And I'm also on Astrobin, and I'll share a link to that shortly too. And just to introduce myself, my name is Gowri. I'm volunteering with the Astro Imaging channel. When I'm not imaging, I do software engineering and research and cybersecurity. So I've been doing deep sky imaging since 2020 and joined the NOVAC, which is our local imaging club. I live in Virginia, and I volunteer with the Astro Imaging channel too. And the image that you see out here is processed from data in Chile, and it's one of my favorite images, so I put it here. And I did want to acknowledge some of the images that I've processed are from Chile, and I get the data from OpsTech. And thank you to Mike, who's been helping me with both the data and processing these unusual objects. So I've processed a lot of images from OpsTech, but here are some of my favorite images, and some of these are offbeat or wide mosaics of popular objects. And I like highlighting objects that are either rarely imaged or not frequently imaged or not accessible to us over in the Northern Hemisphere. And processing, and some of the scopes that I process from are 1 meter plane wave and 700 millimeters. So very, very deep. And the other thing I'd like to talk about is my collaborations that I did this year. One of the things I've been doing more recently is collaborating with fellow astrophotographers. And this particular image is a collaboration with agent Eric Slan, and he has a rig over in OpsTech. And this image is another really cool region of the sky that is not very frequently imaged. And I suggested this region to agent, and he kindly acquired the data using his Takahashi Epsilon over in OpsTech with 2 panels that we designed together. And there's about 60 hours of data over 2 panels here. And there's more details in Astrobin, and this was kindly awarded the IOTD on Astrobin a few weeks ago, actually. And it was a lot of fun to process this. It's HOO, and we just went back and forth and iterated over it till we were both happy with the final result. My next collaboration I did was with Imran Bader, who's over in California. And this is backyard data that was acquired by both of us, a very different, and we chose the region of the sky that was imaged not very frequently and not imaged in this deep dive view that we've presented it as. And it is the Fossil Footprint Nebula. And it was really faint, and especially each sub was super faint, and just we had to collect a lot of data in order to get any meaningful, significant detail. And Imran also got color data that we added some dust on top of this view. And he basically imaged using his Selectron, and I imaged using my RIDK 330, and the image scales matched pretty well, and we just combined the data and jointly processed it. And it was a really, really challenging one to process. So thank you for that, Imran. The other collaboration that I'm currently working on is with Ahmed and Allah over in Egypt. And the 3 of us just put our heads together and decided to do this other frustratingly faint region in the sky, which is the Garlic Nebula. And this O is really, really faint on this. So we're still collecting data, and the weather has not been cooperating with us. So this is just a sneak peek of a starlit view of the image, and we're hoping to do a lot more than this. So just a heads up there. So at home, I have an observatory that I had built in my backyard in a shed with a rolling roof, and this is the setup that I have. It's a plane wave mount on a rolling pier, because at some point I want to move this to a darker sky, and an Officina Stellar 330 with the 6200 moonlight and chroma 3 nanometer SHO and border LRGB. And this is while we were setting it up in my driveway and configuring it, but eventually it went into the backyard and into the shed. And it's still functional right now. In fact, the image I did with Imran was acquired using this particular setup. So my contact information on Astrobin and my email, and this is a region in Orion that I processed, another obscure region. So I really like this one. So resolutions for 2025, more imaging from my backyard, trying to get more obscure objects, faint objects from home, which is frustrating, but somehow I want to do it. And more collaborations with my awesome fellow astrophotographers, process more remote data, then planning another remote setup somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere. And I really want to build on nightscapes and deep sky imaging on site, which I haven't done much of last year, but I do want to do more nightscapes this year. So that's it for me. And I'd just like to show my Astrobin page. If any of you'd like to communicate with me there too. I had a lot of images that I processed in 2024, and these are some of them.
Got a lot of trophies and stars and arrows up there. Very nice.
Thanks, Gowri.
Thank you.
All right, you can stop sharing. Any questions as long as we're between presenters? Molly?
I don't see any, no.
Okay. Well, we're moving right along. I'll talk more slowly when it's my turn. Jaime. You're up, guy.
Hey, Eric. Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity for exposing my work to the world through the Astro Imaging channel. I'm Jaime Zapata. I am on Ecuador in South America, where I have access to both hemispheres. My sky is somewhat limited. My sky is like very cloudy, and that has been an impediment for me in order to get like many images. But I'm going to show you what has been my journey during 2024. I hope you enjoy it. Are you guys seeing my screen?
That's coming.
We are.
Okay, so let's start with the 2024 total solar eclipse. This is actually one of my composite images that I produced during the eclipse. I had the pleasure to travel to the northern Texas. Actually, the weather predictions were bad for that exact date and time. But we managed to go to the northern part of Texas to a town called Gunter. And over Gunter, I was able to take these wonderful images on the total solar eclipse. Then I published this first image on Facebook, and it was published as the solar picture of the day in a group that is well known there on Facebook. Then a guy whose name is Luca Quaglia contacted me about this image because he would like to validate his model using this image. So he has a model which is available on this website whose name is baselianelements.com. And actually, using my image and the image from like other observers, Luca was able to validate the accuracy of his model. Here, for example, he actually published a paper here in the Journal for Occultation and Astronomy. You can download this paper if you would like after this presentation. But essentially, have you ever wondered what is to be like go to the edge of the totality? What happens exactly over the edge? So essentially, after evaluating my images, Luca said that we haven't experienced a pure totality, but we experience certain kind of what is known like a coronality eclipse. And Luca's model was essentially accurately predicting like the frontier or the border between the totality and the partiality, and we were right outside the totality. So we didn't experience like a true totality, but something that was called like a coronality. And what about the Bailey's beads? For eclipse observers that are actually located right at the center of the eclipse path, you are used to experience the Bailey's beads on both sides of the lunar disk. For me, it was a totally different experience because the Bailey's beads were like separated. These are the Bailey's beads that were shown at C2, and these were the Bailey's beads shown at C3. And actually, they both were shown at the same time at a 22-degree angle of separation between the two faces of the contact. So essentially, given these images, we never experienced totality. But essentially, the Bailey's beads were always like present. And essentially, after that, Luca was coming with, Luca came with this like nice paper that you can download from the Journal for Occultation and Astronomy. But the eclipse was not the entire adventure. Along with a friend whose name is Miguel Angel Carrion, who lives in Tucson, Arizona, we organized like a big road trip over like pretty much three states. We traveled through Arizona, New Mexico, and also Texas. So the eclipse was experienced at the half of this road trip, but we had a wonderful experience. We traveled like 2,600 miles, pretty much that. And we had the opportunity to visit like a lot of places, like a lot of cities. I also visited the Grand Canyon, the Barringer crater, parts of the historical Route 66. I actually never knew the saguaros until I came to this trip. So it's not all about astrophotography. This is also about the adventure that you have, and also about the friends that you make along the road. And of course, the result of the trip, that was this wonderful eclipse image. This is my year. This is like the summary of my year in terms of images. Maybe they are not so fancy as Molly's or Gowri's images, because I have like limited skies, but my year pretty much looks like this. I have images from both hemispheres. For example, Carina is one of the targets that I acquired over the southern hemispheres. And I also take the opportunity to do like landscape imaging and astrophotography, of course. But if a picture is worth 1,000 words, why don't display in a video that might be related to the images that I took during 2024? So let's start with the first one. But for that, bear with me with a second, because I need to stop presenting and I need to share one specific tab in order for you to get the audio. So let me try to show just the tab that I need to share, and that will be shared with the audio. Yeah, so this image was taken in early 2024. It was taken with a Daystar Quark eyepiece or filter. And the curious thing with this image is that I was using a super simple guide scope in conjunction with the Quark eyepiece in order to get the image. But the most remarkable thing that with these images is that I animated them, so they are like more appealing and more interesting, rather than have something static. These are just 1 minute long, so bear with me, and I will be placing the second one. Let's inspect the second reel. This is actually Carina and the friends. Let's see one more. And last but not least, one of my latest hyperstones. We are approaching the Eagle Nebula. So that's pretty much it in terms of my imaging. Let me share my screen again. And let's go to my 2025 New Year's resolutions. Actually, this is not a personal resolution list, but a list that could be applied to any kind of beginner that is either introducing into the hobby or in the middle of it in the path for learning. So the first one, get new gear or acquire new gear or upgrade your gear. Start saving if you haven't already. Stop buying new gear if you just purchase in a compulsive way. So and purchase the software that you might need. The second new resolution would be learning. Always learn a new technique or a skill. For example, attend that workshop that you would like, read that book that you have still pending, follow someone on YouTube, follow the Astro Imaging channel. Then the next, experiment with different post-processing settings and try to innovate. Try something new. For example, I was trying like animation in the pictures that I have taken. So don't be afraid to try something new. And the next one would be planning. Make sure that you have an actual schedule of the celestial events that are going to occur during 2025, and also find better locations compared to the ones that you have right now. 2025 is going to be a great year from a solar perspective. So if you would like to get introduced into solar imaging, this would be a great year for doing so. Then the community. If you haven't already joined your local astronomy club, share your knowledge with your peers, share your knowledge with your friends, and also don't forget to share your knowledge with us. Don't be afraid to do a talk here in the Astro Imaging channel. Feel free to participate. Just contact us through the contact form, which is available on the website, and you would be on our weekend shows. Also, build your cave. Build your personal cave. Dedicate more time to the hobby. Get more practice with your gear, with the gear that you already have. Create a dedicated space for either storing or for processing your image if you don't have one. and start building that observatory if that is your goal for the next 2025 year. Also, travel home. Don't just stay home. Go to a dark sky location. Make friends. Meet with your current friends and build memory. Astrophotography is not just a hobby for spending your time at home, but also it's a great opportunity for traveling abroad. Also, this is a hobby for challenging yourself. You should always try to set your goals, your targets. You should always try to challenge yourself. Don't compete against others, but here I'm going to take a saying from the guys that have like mountaineering experience. It's not the mountain that we conquer, but it is us. So always challenge yourself. And if you would like, enter into the different competitions that Mike is out there. Also, make sure that you document your work. Always keep a log of your sessions. Experiment with different post-processing settings, and always review your progress. And last but not least, always have fun. This is a hobby after all. You need to exercise patience and persistence. But don't stress out. Just be proud. Share your results to the world. Given this, I wish you a very, very happy 2025. Here are my social networks if you would like to follow me. Eric, the microphone is yours.
Thanks, Jaime. You know, you have one big advantage where you are. You can see both north and south.
Yeah.
You know, we're quite limited to some of those things like row of fucus that we love to get. So you're kind of right in the middle, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm like just a couple of degrees south of the equator, maybe a degree and a half, and something below the line. Yeah, I like cloudy skies, but I have like wonderful windows of observations, which I take advantage of in order to get my imaging.
Are there any questions online, Molly?
No, we don't have any questions online. Couldn't get the mute button off.
Oh, it's that darn mute button.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I have a few words. Not as many as you guys, but I got a few things to share. So let me bring up a window. So here are most of the images I did for 2024. Not all of them were captured during this year. Some I had data from prior years. But it turned out that it was probably 110, 120 images for the year. Early in the year, I'm at the SRO. I have a 20-inch CDK 7.8 on an L mount. And during the early part of the year, I think we had some nights where we had like 30 nights in a row of good seeing. Of course, the last couple of months of the year was terrible seeing. So I kind of made up for it. But these are all the images that I could locate that I posted. And if I just, let me just hide this. You know, one thing else that I realized this year, I saw this program on developing certain expertise over a lifetime. And it was a group of Japanese craftspeople. And they came, I think they came up with, you had to put in 40,000 hours. I'm not sure, but I started to calculate how many hours I put into processing and accumulating data. And I think I've eclipsed, no pun intended, I think I've eclipsed the 40,000 hours. The only problem with developing expertise in 40,000 hours is there's always something new. There's a new version of PixInsight, there's new tools. So you never really get to the point of being an expert when there's always something new that you have to learn. And that's actually the frustration and joy of the hobby. So next year or this year, we're going to be producing images that are better than the year before, that were better than the year before. And that's because this hobby is evolving. All you have to do is to go on AstroBin, where I post most of my images. I post all my images, and see and look back 10 years and you go, oh my gosh, those weren't very good. And that's because the equipment has gotten better, cameras have gotten better, and processing techniques have gotten better. So I'm going to hide this. So this is kind of a rundown of the images that you see behind it. Not all of them. 27 galaxies, 12 planetaries. For some reason, everyone seems to like the planetary nebulas, even though they're small. And I had a couple collaborations with the planetary nebulas, trying to tease out some of that oxygen emission, which a few years ago, I think we kind of missed a lot of that, the faint outer glows and bands on some of these planetaries. 12 days of solar imaging. That was kind of a failure. The problem was that we didn't have that many. I solar image from here, from Glen Ellen, Illinois, and we just don't have that many good solar imaging days. So I just couldn't get enough solar imaging, but we're going to solve that now. And of course, one eclipse, which great, we got the money image. You can kind of see it over here. And one aurora. I only got it one. I know we had 2 events, but I kind of missed the second one. We went up the night before to Wisconsin and sat there in the dark, and there was no aurora. The next night, there was an aurora, and we didn't go out. And what's missing on this, is the comet of the century, at least the century so far. So it has been a wonderful astronomy year in 2024. So what's planning for 2025? There's a project I've embarked upon with Tim Hutchison. And the question is, if we have these cameras that have small pixels, that logically we should bin them in order to get the resolution that the telescope, the 20-inch telescope, which is a 4-meter scope, can really give you. But that may not be true. And there are some thinking that you should really take bin 1 images. And perhaps under the best conditions, you might end up with more detail than bin 2. We are testing out that idea. And I say that joyfully, but what that does mean is that everything is either 4 or 10 times as big as it was before, our images, and the processing takes longer, but that's life. The other thing that we're doing, along with doing a bin 1 trial for a long term, is accumulating more data. I think in the past I've probably gotten 15 or 20 hours per image, but we're going to double and triple that to see whether there's some detail, to see whether we can get on that plateau where you can't get any more SNR out of your images. So we'll be getting more data, perhaps less images, but that's just fine. And the other exciting thing I'll show you in just a moment is I'm going to ship my 5-meter solar telescope out at the SRO because Jason, a new friend of ours, has built a new observatory 11 feet in the air at the SRO and put in a pier strictly for solar imaging. Now, at the SRO, I think they probably have 200, 220, 230 good imaging nights. How many good imaging mornings and middays do they have? Well, that'll be the question, but I can't see any reason that we aren't going to have day after day after day of excellent, excellent solar imaging. And those clear skies are going to go right into the day. And whereas we have these 5-meter scopes built by Detlef Schmidt, we really haven't got the most of it. And now we're going to ship them out there, or I'm going to ship mine out there along with my mount and see what we can get at the SRO. And even more exciting than that is Detlef is building a 6-meter tower voltage refractor. I'll show you a picture of the 5-meter one. So we're going to get even more close and more up close and personal with the sun. And I bet by the end of next year, we're going to have some extraordinary images from the ground. And of course, more galaxies and more nebula. And what did I leave off? Oh, we got a lunar eclipse coming up. Now, I think many of you, the lunar eclipse is going to be over the center 2/3 of the country. So most of you out there are going to be able to see this and going to see totality. So when you image it, don't think this is just one shot or maybe leading up to it and then the blood moon and then you're done. There's a shadow because it is not uniform during the course of totality, which I think runs about an hour. So you basically have the moving shadow of the lunar eclipse during totality. So if you are going to image it, make sure you do some kind of a sequence so you can do an animation and see that dark shadow with different illumination of the blood moon moving across it. It's an interesting image. Now I'm going to show you just a couple more things if I can escape out of here and close this down. Well, that's the last lunar eclipse where you can see the moving shadow of the lunar eclipse. And you can see that the lightness and darkness varies. That's not a processing effect. That's actually something that's real. And when you animate that, which I'm not showing you, you get a very interesting little video clip. Oh, by the way, I have a new picture on my Astrobin site. That's me in a tux. And that was our first grandkid to get married, Alex, who married Emily just about a month and a half ago. So that's my picture, at least for a while. And the one thing I forgot to put in my little display was the picture of the comet. This was the comet taken with the 4-meter scope, the Planewave CDK. And basically how this was done, I took an hour of 5-second exposure. There were hundreds and hundreds of them for my luminosity. And then I think 15 5-second RG&B to get the color out of it. And then a little bit of processing and Pix Insight. And you did get some structure to that comet. I actually took it again the following day and compared the two. And during that one day, it really did change. And this is the folded refractor that's going out to California. This is on my back deck, and this is where I solar imaged up to now. We're shipping that out probably in the next month, and hopefully sometime in February, it'll be up commissioned and I'll get some new images. And finally, we got the moving shadow. And for anyone that wants to see me on Astrobin, I am Eric Coles, or Coles44. And there are a lot of images. I think I have about 1,100 posted on Astrobin. And I think that's all I have. I'm going to stop presenting.
Eric, I don't think any new questions have come in on the chat line here. If anybody would like to
Alex?
say anything about it. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, it's all yours.
My turn. It's my turn, and I hope I don't mess this up. So let's see what we can do here.
I believe in you.
Thank you. Let's see. That's the one you guys want to see, I believe, and I will share that. Is the right one coming through? It should be just the M45. Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm the 5th person to be presenting here. We decided that we would go out and because it's Auld Lang Syne, you know, the last of the year, beginning of the year, we'd review what we did and look into the future. And Eric reminded us to think about all the people that we appreciate that made all this possible. So I'm going to conclude a little bit of that more than the other guys have. As you can see, I am not the imager that some of these other people are. So I actually have to do some work here to get my screen ready to give this presentation. And click there. That's the one I want. There are two people that are in the Astro Imaging Channel group here that are not going to be able to give a presentation tonight because they're actually working the engineering of the show. I want to express our appreciation for Patrick Spencer and Jerry Robeson, who are sitting there doing whatever those guys do with the YouTube and the screening software and all, streaming software and all that other stuff. But the rest of us have all got something to tell you about. And this is how it went this last year. The first thing I want to say is, in looking back and preparing for this program, I want to tell you about a few things that happened that made my life both good and why did we not change program? Why didn't we change? Oh, I know why.
You might need to click on it.
Pardon?
Yeah, you might need to click on it to make it
I'm
the
not,
active window.
I've got too many programs going here. Okay. Can you, did it change? Nope, it didn't change. Hang on.
You just click on
Now.
like the PowerPoint presentation. There you go.
There it goes. And looking back over the year and preparing for the program, I wanted to tell you about a few things that happened that made my life good, both in general and, since this is the Astro Imaging Channel, my astronomy adventures. I have a lovely and most supportive wife, and here she is with, we're at the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. And so Snoop and Judy and me, we was hanging around at the game. We had a good time. I managed to play with my kids. They came over from the Czech, and the one that lives nearby, we got to see them a lot. So they're all pretty supportive of this hobby I've got. And I should tell you, I grew up in a big family. Up there at the top, you can see that there's a lot of people in my family, and that's just the Southern California bunch. There's also the Northern California bunch, which we visited. We had a couple of weddings, and we're all in pretty decent shape. We're in such decent shape that my sister up in the upper left-hand corner there, who's about 3 or 4 years older than I am, got married last week. So we're all in pretty good shape, and I'm grateful for that. I'm also very grateful for my buddies in the Riverside Astronomical Society, and here we are at a luau, and this is just at our observing site. We're having a great time. But there were also some really interesting events. That aurora, you've seen pictures of it, Joshua Tree, which is really southern stuff, and you've got the aurora behind it. I got somewhat skunked. I did see it during totality. It opened up enough for me to catch a little bit of it, but I pretty much got skunked. But these were some of the trials and tribulations I went through. My biggest problem was health. Man, as you can see, I took everything to get rid of the pains of getting old. It was a real pain in the butt getting old like that. But I did okay. And one morning I woke up and I raised my hand, and that may not mean much to you, but it was amazing to me. I could actually raise my hand like that, and while it still hurts, I mean, it hurt just now. After a year and a half of not being able to raise my hand, and that includes the therapy and everything, I was able to do that. So I've got lots to be thankful for. I also had a few minor trials and tribulations. There was one night where I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get my roof open at all. And I finally realized that for some reason, for the first time in forever, I connected some stuff that wouldn't work. There were twice this year, my filter wheel jammed into the bottom of my pier and actually broke the USB connection, and I had to go in and replace that. That cost a couple of $100 each time, and that wasn't fun at all. The vicissitudes of life, okay? I went all the way to Oregon to take beautiful pictures, and there was a fire, and the Oregon Star Party got canceled. My Raspberry Pis could no longer handle the meteor program I'm running. I look for meteors every night. Our internet was poopy. And of course, I had bad weather, just like everybody else gets bad weather one time or another. But back to things that went well. People often ask me, because like I'm on the Astro Imaging Channel, and I give presentations like this, and they say, so what do you think about Nina? How do you use that? How do I do this? And I didn't know because I've never used it. I know a lot about SGP, Sequence Generator Pro. I could have written a book about it. I could have sold that book, and with the royalties from that book, I could have bought Nina. So that's about how good that I knew about SGP. But I didn't know about Nina. I finally started using Nina. And yeah, it works. I don't know everything about it. It still frustrates me in some ways. Let's see, is this the one where I wanted to play? Yes, this is the one I wanted to play. I really went into trying to figure out how to do the automation. Watching a few shows on the Astro Imaging channel, I knew that I was supposed to use projects. So I made up projects, and then I had a bunch of icons made up stored in those projects, and they were organized in just the proper way. For instance, one of the automation things I did was make sure that I could use the batch processing program without too much work. So I stored, one of the icons I stored was the batch processing program filled with all the stuff that it already needed. And all you got to do is press this little button right down here. After you start the icon, press this little button right here, and you can see that it's already filled up with its bias and darks and flats, but it doesn't have any lights from what I've just processed. So I have to come down to the bottom down here, and I have to tell it, load the lights for me, would you? That's every time I get a new set of lights, I go through Blink, get rid of the bad ones, I add everything else. Just like that, just select the whole thing, and PixInsight knows to put them all in order for me, and it puts it all right like that. One other thing I have to do is come down here and tell it where I want to save it. I tell it where I want to save it, and that's that. Then presto changeo, the next thing I want to do is tell it to, I check the diagnostics probably, and then I tell it to run. I got to tell the calibration. I got to put in some configurations, and that pretty much stays the same. But this automation of it won't save it. So I tell it I want to do whatever I want to, and I just go from there. When I'm finished, if you can see this little corner down here, if you pull it off to the side, you can rename it. In this case, I rename it WBPP and put the date on it. And I don't have to make another WPPP again. I could just use the same one over and over again as long as my plats are good. And where are we? Next one. I started using artificial intelligence because mine was apparently not adequate. All the stuff from Russ Croman. I started using that, and it made a tremendous difference. And particularly with Ron Bretcher's program he did for the Astro Imaging channel, telling us how to take the stars out and process them separately was a great advantage to me. And so I started using that. Secondly, I really started using scripts, processes, and presets, particularly if you go back to the Astro Imaging channel program we did with Frank from Astro SETI. Some of those programs really automate things that I had to struggle with before, but trusting his presets, trusting, as a matter of fact, the presets of all these icons that came out of PixInsight, you can get a lot done pretty automated. And I straightened out my workflow. Here you can see it a little bit better. I always blink, then I open up statistics and check out what I got. And then I go to that WBPP automation I just showed you, and off I go. So those are some things that I worked out, and they're in approximate order so I can do them very easily. But what really improved my work was that my attitude. I just decided, look, every Sunday night, I watch some really good imagers tell us about what they're doing. But frankly, because I'm also watching the internet to see what you guys are saying in the comment section, I'm also wondering about how the show's going with time taking, all that stuff. I don't necessarily hear what they're saying. And I decided I need to actually go back and take them bit by bit. I need to get into the manuals and find out what's underneath everything and find out when I should do it, how I should do it, and what those presets always mean. And all that stuff really helped make my imaging better. But let's get back to people. We did a show once on the Astro Imaging channel where we talked about Marcia and there's some other people talked about special interest groups in astro imaging. And in that show, we talked about how we can all help a lot of people. We can all help each other. Out at GMARS, which is where our club has its observing site, we have about 5 or 6 of us on a text messaging system. Ooh, my cursor should be over here. We on a text messaging system that we communicate with each other as we're out there in our various observatories. So if somebody's got a problem, we can get together and talk about it. At least once a year, twice calling Nightfall, where Molly was this year. We have a seminar. This wasn't Molly's. This is one out at our observing site in one of the rooms that we have, where we actually talk about what we need to do to be better astroimagers. But mostly it was the fact that we critique each other, and I got better because I started to listening to all that. And that's what I plan to do more of in the future. Just change the attitude. RTFM, really go after it and try to become better at what I'm doing. And that, folks, is what my summary of last year and next year was about. Thank you. Eric, you're back to you.
I'm here. Thanks, Alec. That was a little different instead of all of us bragging on our images.
Well, if I had images like you guys have images, I might have done that. But anyway.
It was very well received on this end. I can tell you that. It's about what we do a lot is about the people and our interaction with the people.
Yeah. And we need more people if I haven't said it lately.
Oh, you haven't said it. Oh, I thought we'd get to a whole program without that, but maybe not. So I think we got everyone. Terry, you want to come back on? Gowri? Jaime?
I hope you guys all enjoyed the show. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I guess once a year we can do something like this. And for everyone out there, I don't know who hung in with us, and I hope if you haven't, you can watch the show a little bit later. But again, Happy New Year to everyone. Let's make this a productive year. Let's hope the sun erupts and gives us more auroras, and we have a perfectly clear night for the lunar eclipse. And we have hundreds and hundreds of clear nights for the rest of what we do. That's all yeah, those are all my wishes. But
no Carrington events.
No care.
Those flares seem to be pointed not directly at us. Then they're cool.
No. I want at least 3 aurora events this year. It's still solar max. We're still maybe just over the peak of solar max. So
I want to see T Corona Borealis go nova soon. It's back up in the morning hours, by the way. If
it's just teasing, Molly.
So rude.
It's not going to blow.
It's going to blow.
I think we're all set. Want to say good night, everyone?
Good
night. We'll see you next week.
Good night. Wish you the best.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.